It has been a little over a year since Cyberpunk 2077 has been released. After first being announced all the way back in 2012 and getting delayed 3 times, the game was finally released to the public on December 10th, 2020. And the ultimate question was, how was it? The answer? A complete fucking mess. It would take too long to go over all the bugs and issues that this game had at launch. And I think the footage you're seeing right now speaks for itself. To say there was an outrage against CDPR would be an understatement. Fans spoke out their disappointment, stock prices dropped, and even employees were leaving the company. There was definitely a lot of outcry for the game. People were outraged by the game's release in this state, and the missing features, and the fact that the story was not as open-ended as we were led to believe. The official subreddit went from hyping up the game to making fun of it. Clips on Twitter showing off bugs went viral, and even Crobecat woke up from his hibernation to make a video about it. So in this large bug-filled mess of a game, what was in it? Well, for me and a lot of others, characters, music, a setting, a story, an experience that I will never forget anytime soon. This is why Cyberpunk 2077 will never fade away.
Good morning, Night City! Yesterday's body count lottery rounded out to a solid and sturdy 30. 10 out of Haywood, thanks to unabated gang wars. 1 officer down, so I guess you're all screwed, cause the NCPD will not let that go. Got another blackout in Santo Domingo. Netrunners are at it again, poking holes in the power grid. While over in Westbrook, trauma teams scraping cyber psycho victims off the pavement. And in Pacifica, well, Pacifica is still Pacifica. This has been your man, Stan. Join me for another day in our city of dreams.
To start off, we need to talk about one of the most important features of this game that makes it stand out, the setting. Even before Cyberpunk's release, cities at this point have become pretty repetitive in a lot of games. The GTA games, Saints Row prototype, the Infamous series, Watch Dogs, Sleeping Dogs, all these places took place in a city. And in most cases, they were based on real locations. Sometimes they're subtle, and other times they're just complete copies. The GTA games are known for this. It's what makes these games so impressive to so many people. They have consistently impressed with their depictions of New York City, Miami, and Los Angeles. But while it is very impressive to see these cities reimagined, it can also get really shallow and sometimes boring when driving around these streets for the 100th time. This is especially true if you're someone like me who is familiar with New York or LA. I understand why the developers choose these cities, but it also takes away the creativity when you are trying to recapture something perfectly. And that to me is why Night City stands out so much. Because the only thing that Night City is based on is Night City. And unless you're someone who played the original Cyberpunk tabletop game, Night City is a completely new place for you to experience. And even if you have, this is the first time you've been exposed to it on screen. And the familiarity can bring more excitement as you explore the city that you've only imagined in your head for so long. The neon lights, the outrageous in-your-face advertisement, the NPC's clothing, it all culminates into a rich atmosphere that is engaging to explore. And you can easily get lost in it. I've constantly found myself walking around the streets, just looking at the lines of TVs all playing a news report, or seeing piles of trash in a graffiti-filled alleyway, only to walk out and see the bright buildings advertising some deranged pornography. Which segues pretty well to the next point I'm going to make. For those of you that are familiar with the game, you will know that Night City has big themes on excess, sex, murder, mayhem, drugs. Everywhere you look in the city is constantly reminding you of one or all of these things. And while I understand that for some, these ads might get a little annoying and redundant at times. Constantly seeing asses and titties everywhere and hearing someone moan every time you go into an elevator filled with TVs can get a little draining. But something that I noticed when I really started to put the hours into this game, these ads just became natural to me. They're just a normal commercial that I've seen before. And this is basically what the people of Night City treat it. It's just another ad that plays every day. In Night City, everything is up for sale. And that includes sex, which is pretty accurate where we're heading in real life. But I digress. The different districts even have their own personalities as well. The main district where V lives, Watson, has a bunch of factories and apartments everywhere with a little shopping center that hides the Ripper docks in the alleyways like where Vic's shop is. Westbrook serves as basically the red light district with so many sex shops and casinos that you can find on Jig Jig Street. The city center is the big Corpo Palace. The architecture is typically a lot nicer around here. Right below it is Haywood, a very traditional city-like complex where the Valentinos have major control over the area. Santo Domingo has a big LA Compton feel with its ghetto neighborhoods. Pacifica is a complete shithole. The buildings are crumbling down and the roads are incomplete and destroyed. And the Badlands give this New Vegas-like vibe with a vast abandoned desert. All the districts give a different vibe while all fitting the Night City setting. It gives the map more variety than most other open world games, at least those that take place in a city. And this couples well with the Cyberpunk metropolis environment. The city itself takes inspiration from real cities to make it familiar to something in real life, but the mega building complex is so big they block out the sun, the neon lights, the flying transports. It makes it feel like a whole new place to explore and play around in. This is especially true with the gangs. Each district is occupied by different gangs, and some are even fighting for a specific region. They make their presence known by either just hanging out on the street, the graffiti on the wall, and even entire shops are run by gang members. Now, while it is a complaint that the gang members serve little purpose, and as there isn't something like a reputation system like in New Vegas, I would still argue that the variety in gang members helps sell the environment. Instead of going to a settlement and killing a bunch of raiders, followed by going to a settlement and killing a bunch of raiders, you're assassinating a high-ranking member of the Tiger Claws and then rescuing someone from Maelstrom. The missions are able to change the context so that the combat stays fresh. Speaking of which, when it comes to the combat of Cyberpunk, the variety that this game has is absolutely insane. The number of builds and playstyles that are possible in this game is absolutely wonderful, and they stand out with games like Fallout and Elder Scrolls in terms of how varied your playstyle can be. Ranging from guns, melee, hacking, and stealth, all of these can be used and combined in so many ways to create an exciting and a unique combat system that is different for everyone, in minor or major ways. And these categories split into even more subcategories to create your own powerhouse, whether that's an expert marksman that double taps every enemy in seconds, a ruthless samurai that chops people into pieces, or a sneaky hacker that can completely fuck with your mind like a 40k psyker. This is especially impressive considering that in CDPR's previous game, The Witcher 3, only allowed for two different builds, swords or signs. Cyberpunk's combat is so open-ended and complex that almost 3 hours in, and I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface in what I'm capable of. Case in point, hacking. There's so much shit that you can do with hacking that I had no fucking clue you could do it. In my first few playthroughs, I would just use hacking to turn off a camera. But now I found out that you can combine synaptic burnout with contagion and make the entire group of enemies spontaneously combust. Or cyberpsychosis, which just makes people go completely insane and fight everyone around them. But there isn't a focus on just one build. The stats and perks have been carefully crafted to support whatever the player wants to do. My personal favorite builds have been fast-moving sword-focused builds, It's so riveting to see the fluid first-person animations of the swords and mantis blades as you duel an enemy. The Night City thugs are no match for me, for I studied the blade. And this pairs well with the cybernetics and hacking you can acquire. For example, if someone's harassing you in a high elevated area, you can double jump and just cut them down. Or if there's a heavy weapons guy making it difficult, hack their gun and all of a sudden they're powerless to stop you. Even the weapons vary in both design and how they work. Let's talk about the guns. The power guns are the ones we're used to. They are the standard weapons, but they also are some of the most powerful guns in the game, dishing out heavy damage and can easily tear through people. Just take a look at Johnny's Malorian. 2 headshots from this thing will put anyone in the ground, while also having a flamethrower attachment and one of the coolest reload animations ever. Smart guns. These are bound to give PTSD to the average Titanfall player, equipped with bullets that lock on and find their way into the body of some unlucky gonk, and with the wonderful charm of Skippy.
Bum, bum, be-dum, bum, bum.
What are you doing?
I'm making the wait more pleasant with a soothing melody.
These are usually lower on the DPS scaling, but it will guarantee constant damage. Tech guns, a personal favorite of mine. These guns are equipped with a charge-up ability that does devastating damage. It can even knock foes off their feet. A fully charged shot with a DB2 Satara is euphoric. It's also important to address that all of these playstyles are supported in the context of the missions, with the exception of a few where it is preferred to use stealth, but something that I really appreciate is that even a non-stealthy player can choose to go into stealth, and it actually works. This is in comparison to stealth in Skyrim, where you either spec into stealth and become invisible, or you don't bother and everyone sees you. Having these options always available makes experimenting more viable and flexible to more players, especially with the recent update making respecking easier. Take the turrets. If you're a hacker build, you can simply disable them or reprogram it to turn it against your enemy. Or if you're a strength build, you can destroy the turret or rip the fucking thing out and just go to town. I love this shit. It reminds me of Halo. The different stats, large amount of weapons, cybernetics, the hacking. It creates unique combat moments for each person, and it can change from mission to mission. And yeah, sure, you can make a case for the combat being better or more varied in other games, but for a game that offers so many builds without committing to a class, I'd say it's pretty impressive to see them flesh it out so much. I'm still surprised by the shit I see online. If you have the time, check out some combat montages online. They are insane.
Truly hope Zuleika is praying for me now. Will you stay with me? To the end?
They're planting new memories in their heads, modifying their personalities. This is big shit, Johnny.
Fuck me.
He seemed to be changing right in front of me. Becoming someone else.
How so?
He stopped reading, forgot the title of his favorite movie. Even his musical taste changed overnight.
I have come to beg you for forgiveness.
You murdered my son.
The thing that this game excels at the most is by far the characters and the stories. Let's talk about some of the side quests and gigs that you'll go through. Like any RPG, the world of Night City is littered with dozens of interesting stories to discover and get lost in that can completely mesmerize the player. This goes for the simple gigs that you get called for. Now, I've heard some people mention before how it gets tedious and annoying to consistently have a bunch of people call you about different shit to do around the city every time you approach a new location. But it's important to understand that they do this to get enough information to the player in a quick and easy way. And while the gigs may be similar in concepts, the building layouts and objectives play very differently. Back in my RPG video, I mentioned how it's important for games to change the context from mission to mission, so that even if you are doing the same thing in theory, it at the very least makes sense in the setting. And Cyberpunk does this with each gig. When you approach a location, a fixer will call you and give you a quick brief on the objective. And if you're interested, they'll even text you more information, not only giving more insight to the mission, but to the world and the people that live in it. This is a good way to support two types of players. The ones that just want to get right to the action will listen to the call and get it done, and those who want to learn more will dive deeper. It may not be a perfect concept, but it's a lot better than this shit.
Another settlement has sent word that they need our help. I'll mark it on your map. Go find out what they need.
It also stands out from the Ubisoft comparison as well. In games like Far Cry, the camp takeovers are where the missions remain relatively the same. Clear out the area of enemies. However, the areas change their layout to keep the missions varied. In Cyberpunk, there are some missions that don't even require you to fire a bullet. If you are crafty enough, you can talk your way out of a fight. There are some gigs that get incredibly dark. There's this one for Regina where you have to recover a brain dance that records the murder of a young kid. So after decimating some maelstrom pricks, you come across the people that edit the BD. It's a father and a son. They are terrified and beg you not to hurt them. These gigs stand out so much and build up on the fucked up nature that happens in Night City. But enough about the gigs, let's talk about some of the side missions. To quote Susie Hunter's video, the side missions in this game compared to the main story take on more traditional Cyberpunk stories. The questlines start off relatively simple, but devolve into deeper, more philosophical themes. Topics like an existential crisis, mind control, finding atonement, and just showing how far gone humanity is in this universe. They really did not pull any punches when it comes to what you'll go through. My personal favorite questline is the one with the Perales. It starts off relatively simple. They call you to investigate a break-in to their apartment. At least, that's what they think it is. As they continue to talk to you about it, they seem unsure what they're talking about. But as you investigate, you find out that there was someone in the apartment, but they didn't exactly break in. They were being spied on the entire time by their private security. Oh, but wait, I'm not done yet. So you track this van to a hideout with a bunch of Maelstrom fuckheads. These guys are fucking everywhere. Kill them, and then you realize that this group hasn't just been spying on the Paralysis. They have been fucking with their minds, slowly infecting them and giving them new memories that they never even had. And they basically are getting assimilated into whatever this corporation wants them to be. I love this shit. It's a great way to showcase the idea of a puppet politician. The quests bait you with these simple concepts, but as they go on, they grow into more interesting and unnerving themes. And then at the end, I gotta keep going. At the end of this quest, you are left with a decision. Do you tell him that he's being brainwashed? I mean, it is the right thing to do, right? Despite the odds against you, it's best to tell him with the hope that maybe he can break free from it. Well, perhaps not. Before you meet with Jefferson, Elizabeth, his wife, meets with you and tells him that she thinks it's best that he never know. This way they can't be threatened by the people manipulating him, and he can focus on completing the election. But is it right to keep someone in the dark like this? Is it right to promote ignorance to someone oblivious to a serious issue? This quest is so fucking good, and it's by far one of the highlight side quests of the entire game. Even the smaller quests grow into the exciting moments. There's this one where you go into a clothing store, and then suddenly you're attacked by a cyber psycho, and then after a while Max Tack arrives and takes him down. And one of the members has a very familiar pair of mantis blades. Even though the quests in this game may be fewer, they completely stand out with their themes and concepts, and further expand the setting of Night City. And that same thing can be said about the characters. Besides the setting, the characters of this game are by far the most interesting, well-written, and likable characters that I have seen. So many open-world games nowadays have such forgettable and uninteresting characters, but in here, the people you meet have incredible depth wonderful personalities, and flaws that make them believable. This, coupled with the first-person interactions, makes the conversations between characters very intimate and intense, in both sweet and desperate moments. The level of passion that players have for characters like Jackie, Judy, Johnny, Panam, Carrie, Rogue, Mitch, Vic, Misty speaks volumes for the game. CDPR absolutely killed it with the character writing, which shouldn't be surprising, as it was one of the biggest highlights for The Witcher 3. Two details that this game really nails when it comes to the conversations is eye contact and body language. Whenever a character speaks to you, they are looking straight at you. Which I know doesn't sound very impressive, but bear with me. The conversations in this game are some of the most immersive parts because they're so rich with details that make the moments more interesting. For example, when you meet with Dex and T-Bug at the Afterlife to talk about the heist mission, Jackie is constantly shaking his leg nervously. Little details that don't even need to be in the game. Some people take issue with not being able to see your character during conversations, as it's a feature that is present in many other RPGs, and there's always the argument of, what's the point of customizing my character if I don't see them? And while I can see the reason for people being upset, I offer two counter-arguments. One, the lack of seeing your character makes the moments where you do see your character more meaningful, and two, we're constantly customizing how we look in real life and we're not able to see ourselves in conversations, so get the fuck over it. You barely see your character's face in Elden Ring and you all love that so goddamn much. Even when you're in conversations with minor characters, the first-person perspective is able to immerse the player and put them in V's position. Now, this isn't the first game to do this. The Half-Life and Metro series do this with conversations all the time, and such are some of the most immersive games that I have played. And like Cyberpunk, the highlights are the heart-to-heart interactions you have with other characters. This is especially true in Metro Exodus, when you are just walking around the train and talking to your friends. But these games have one issue. You don't fucking talk. Gordon and Artyom, they just stand there awkwardly and listen to their old colleagues talk about how much he wants you to fuck his dog. This is especially noticeable in Exodus, where there's a scene where Anna is getting sick and starts coughing, and Artyom doesn't have a goddamn reaction. Dude, your wife is dying. You want to show some emotion? Or in Half-Life 2, where there's these moments where it's just Gordon and Alex, and Alex has a lot to say to someone who doesn't fucking say anything. So it's basically just talking to a goddamn wall. And before you accuse me of hating these games, the Half-Life series is in my top 5 favorite series of all time, so leave me alone. Something that is great about Cyberpunk is that V will actually respond, and the performances from Jeremy Lay and Gavin Dre are superb.
Well, Patty.
One more fucking word.
Stay out of this. I don't know you.
And I don't know you, which means you're worth shit around here and capable of even less. Well, anything else? Sit down, Jack. I'm extending the fucking courtesy here. The fact that you're still alive means I'm open to parlay.
Parlez-vous, go fuck yourself. Chit-chat's for assholes. So let's get it over and done with. Man to man, come on.
Say you win. Say you put me out of commission. You think your problems will just vanish into thin air?
All those people from the town. It's depressing. Most nomads have a story like that. And all of them begin with the same thing. Displacement.
Now hold up, yo. Let's all be chill for a second.
You've got an hour to get out of Night City and never look back.
Oh, my sweet fucking Jesus! Thank you! I knew you could—
Shut the fuck up. I wasn't finished. If I ever see your face again, I'll gut you and string you up by your insides. Understand? Now start walking.
Both Vs have such great chemistry with the main characters. Speaking of which, let's go through the characters.
Hey, name's Jackie Wells. You want to write down my recipe?
Sure.
Shot of vodka on the rocks, lime juice, ginger beer. Oh, and most importantly, a splash of love.
Jackie is the biggest bro in this entire game. He is the perfect introduction to this game and to this world. I love how different meeting him is in all the life paths. Whether he's a longtime friend, the new guy you meet, or even someone who tries to rob you, Jackie has such a charisma about him. And he's instantly lovable from the first time you see him. Even in a place as shitty as Night City, you can find a friend like him. Someone who's got your back no matter what. His determination to get to the top is really endearing as he wants to build a better life for his mom and girlfriend. Jackie is the guy I would want to grab a drink with. And seeing him go is such a sad moment that continues to shoot me in the heart to this day. Seeing everyone come to his funeral is simultaneously one of the saddest and best moments of the whole game for me. It's such a human thing, and it's just... ah, man, it hits you hard whenever you do it. Rest easy, Chum.
Sometimes I wish to become a nomad, to leave this world, forget everything.
My opinion of Takamura is an interesting one, as it has changed quite a bit from when I first played the game. Now, that's not to say I dislike him. Far from it, I love Taka. He saves your life and kills Dex in one of the most cold-blooded ways ever, and he even has these funny little boomer moments where he doesn't know how to text and he keeps on accidentally taking pictures of himself and sending haikus to V. I like that. It's very silly. Other than Jackie and Johnny, he's the one you're spending the most time with. And learning about his backstory is really interesting when you find out why he is so loyal to Arasaka. But that's also his great flaw. When I first played the game, I backed Taka for his revenge because he saves me and I gotta do what I gotta do to help him and return the favor. But then I learned that the guy he's loyal to is also responsible for nuking the fucking city and child labor, and I start to question him a bit more. Takamura is a prime example for how dangerous blind loyalty can be to you. It's one of his greatest flaws, and it gives me a strong Feudal Japan vibe, which I enjoy immensely. And if we remember Ghost of Tsushima, we can see what blind loyalty can do to a person.
Everyone in this city lives in their own goddamn bubble. And either you fly high or sink into quicksand.
Everyone's favorite short-tempered techie. Judy was the character that everyone fell in love with as soon as they saw her in the Night City Wire a few years ago. She's a girl that just wants to help as many of her sex worker friends as possible. She's inspired by the Mox and how they were able to break free from the Tiger Claw's grasp, and she wants to do it again after what happens to Evelyn. At first, she has a very cold demeanor towards V and is very untrustworthy of anyone. But as you spend more time with her, the shell cracks and V can really bond with her. She sees you as a true friend, or potentially something more if you're playing as female V. Unfortunately, her plan to free Clouds from the Tiger Claws, while it does work at the moment, it's not to last. The Tiger Claws come back and destroy the place, killing dozens of people. A grim reminder that Night City is not a place where the hero prevails. And this is her fatal flaw. She is so determined to do what she thinks is right in a city that punishes people for doing the right thing. And this leads to her wanting to leave Night City. And for a good reason. This place is a shithole. Unless she has someone to stay for. So Judy is one of the romanceable characters in this game. And she's also one of the most popular ones. The reason why is that the relationship between her and V is really heartfelt and cute. As mentioned before, she starts off with a cold demeanor towards V, but she starts to slowly show concern as you progress through the story, through the cutscenes and the text messages she sends. Her final mission, where she invites you to go diving, is a really well-paced mission. They flirt with each other, and she ends up showing V her hometown that has long since flooded. And she shows this to you because you're the only person that she trusts to share this with. And the scene where they finally get together is really nice. Judy's my personal favorite romance because I am a big fan of having calm, sincere moments in a dark, depressing story. It reminds me a lot of Guts and Casca's relationship in Berserk. There really is a beauty in seeing these two damaged people who have both lost someone that was very important to them find comfort in each other.
Well, here's to that thorn of yours.
Thanks for everything, partner. Another one over here.
The Queen of the Highway. the most popular among most fans. So disregarding the fact that the first time we meet her, she is bent over working on a car, there's a good reason she's beloved by so many. First meeting her, she has trust issues with her nomad family, the Avocados, and is constantly butting heads with the leader Saul. Her questline revolves around her wanting to expand the Avocados further. She wants to branch out and make them a force to be reckoned with, but Saul is stuck in his old ways and is unwilling to listen to her. So she grabs the people that will listen to her and does things her own way to show Saul that she's right. Pan Am is also a romance option, but only for male Vs, and she's also one of the best ones. The reason why is that it feels like a real relationship between her and V. The banter between them is funny and cute.
Ever piloted anything like this?
No, why? Don't you trust me?
Can I still get out?
No.
Then I trust you.
And the romance grows throughout the questline, which is something that I love about this game. Something you'll notice is that Pan Am is not exactly the best when it comes to expressing her feelings through words. She's much more affectionate through her actions and tone. She might act snarky and aggressive towards you, but that's how you can tell she cares. Pan Am's questline is where many of the game's highlights happen. When you're just sitting back and talking to people, which also shows the animations in this game, the conversations and body language in moments like these are incredible. The romances in this game stand out much more than other games because in most cases, the main character is always approached and sex is always the cap of the storyline. It's something that you see in a lot of BioWare games. It shouldn't be surprising that CDPR made some great romanceable characters. I mean, hell, people still debate between Triss and Yen to this day.
Thought the whole us cracks thing was me being afraid. Of being exposed. Of people finally seeing me as another piece of merch. Another cog in the corporal machine.
Johnny's best friend and former guitarist for Samurai. Carrie, when we first meet him, is a complete emotional wreck. And then suddenly he gets visited by some weirdo that has his dead asshole friend in their head. Seeing Carrie and Johnny reminisce about the good times is such a tender and nice moment for the two of them, especially after all the shit that Johnny put him through. After reminiscing, the two of you planned a Samurai Return concert, where they round up the whole gang and perform one last time in the game's best sequence ever. There isn't any fighting or combat in this mission. It's just you rocking out in a dive bar, and it's not only awesome, but it's amazing to see Carrie so happy. He's so lost and down bad after so many years of being on his own that he just wants to find a reason to live again. Now this causes him to lash out in a few drastic ways and even threatening a popular J-pop band, but he thankfully, after hearing them out and some much needed counseling from V, he calms down and becomes a much more chill guy, becoming more of a mentor to new artists and decides to keep being involved in the music industry, even though it's far from how he remembers it. He also invites you onto a yacht and plays you a song. Yeah, I'd probably go gay for him too if this happened.
Listen, I realize I fucked up a lot of things. Either let down or used every last person who gave me their trust. Blind, selfish bastard that I was. But I've managed one thing for now. Not to fuck this up. What we have.
Finally, we get to the main man himself. Johnny Silverhand. The rocker boy terrorist that gets stuck in your head. Johnny in this game is rather diverse, with some people loving him and others hating him. I fully understand both cases. Johnny in the beginning is a complete asshole. He tries to take control of you, he torments you, he even takes advantage of your trust. He is not a good person. Mike Pondsmith warned us about this. The banter between him and V is both funny and obnoxious, but can you really blame him? He woke up trapped in some random person's brain. You'd be cranky too. He makes his presence known throughout the game, and not just the main story. He'll comment on jobs, give you advice on what to do, and remark on your relationships. Regardless of how you feel about his character, you gotta respect CDPR for utilizing Keanu Reeves and Johnny's characters so much throughout the game. Compare this to other game companies like Ubisoft, where they get a big actor and they are only used for marketing and are barely in the game itself. Johnny's character comes full circle towards the end. He's constantly been a thorn on your side, getting you into trouble, critiquing your choices, but he starts to change after he sees what his decisions have done. On a quest that takes you out to where he was buried, which is an unmarked grave in the middle of nowhere, he starts to reflect on the people that he's hurt throughout his life, his constant obsession with destroying Arasaka, and his inflated ego that has pushed the people that he cares about away from him. And most importantly, he sees V not as a tool anymore, but as a second chance that he doesn't deserve. It's at this point that Johnny realizes that V is the only one he's got left, and he needs your help. He wants to give closure to the people still alive that he cares about. Like mentioned before, he meets with Carrie and gives them one last gig to remember, and he goes and sees his ex Rogue to try to give her some closure in her life and see how she's doing. It's a genuine change where we see this egotistical lunatic finally come around and see that the world doesn't revolve around him. Writing on Games also has a video on this, and I highly recommend it. Characters in this game stand out among some of the best characters you'll meet in gaming. They stand out with their designs, voice acting, and personalities. These are just some of my favorites. There are many more that you'll meet throughout the game. Hell, characters like Rita Wheeler and Blue Moon are loved and they barely get any screen time. So I think it's safe to say that CDPR, once again, kills it when it comes to character writing. Cyberpunk 2077 is a lot of things. A buggy mess, a misunderstood masterpiece, an overhyped cash grab, an uncut gem. But above anything else, it's a great game. At least to me. And before you say it, I'm not blind to the problems. This game should not have come out in the state that it was in. It was clearly not ready to be released. And even if it did release in a stable condition, people would still be disappointed. It was never going to live up to the almost decade of hype that this game had. Now, you can blame CDPR for making promises that they couldn't keep, or blame the fans for overhyping the game. But the only way you'll truly understand is if you play the game for yourself. I had a lot of fun revisiting this game. The team has done a tremendous job at patching the game and making it stable. Hell, my game was almost bug-free. Almost. They even added new additions like new cars, clothing, apartments, and even new interactions with the characters. The relationship between the developers and community has only improved, and I only see it getting better with time. Hell, look how happy people were about being able to sleep with Judy and Panam. Not have sex with them, sleep with them. Speaking of which, give me more wholesome shit like this in games. I look forward to not just seeing how they continue to update the game with future updates and expansions, but also seeing the IP as a whole grow with future editions of the tabletop game and the new Edge Runner show coming out. And finally, I leave you with this. If you were disappointed with this game at launch for any reason, then I completely understand. You have the right to be disappointed with a game if you feel it did not live up to the potential you were expecting. But if you have the time for it, I urge you to come back and give it another shot. You may surprise yourself.
Perfect. All great, Pan Am. We're going home.
This one was an interesting one. I didn't intend it to be as long as it ended up being. I originally wanted to make this video about 20 minutes, and then it got more than 20 minutes, and then I wanted to be 30 minutes, and then it got more than 30 minutes. And well, this is what the result was. Part of me wishes that I was able to talk a little bit more about different things, go through more characters, the main story, stuff like that. But part of me also thinks that maybe I could condense them down to a shorter video. But I think I got all my main points across, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now for the next long-term video, I think you guys will enjoy this one. If you had to play either Craftworld Eldar or Tau, who would it be? Tau. They at least have the Farside Enclave. What is something you always want to tell but never asked? Anything involving Half-Life. There's a lot of people I know that don't know Half-Life, and whenever they ask me, well, I mean, I guess it's not that I'm never asked it, but whenever they ask me a sliver of question or some little question about Half-Life, I end up going on a whole spiel of everything that happens from Half-Life 1 all the way to Alex. I really love that series. It's one of my favorite series of all time. What's a state you love to see in a Fallout game? Arizona's always been my answer, mainly because we've seen how the New California Republic rose to power, and I would love to see how the Legion rose to power. Plus, I think it would be nice to see more Midwestern states, as we're pretty familiar with the coast at this point. What was your favorite part of high school? The ending. Oh, and before I forget, for those of you who are interested, I'll be streaming on Twitch coming back this August. I don't know what date per se in August, but it will be before the end of August that streams will be coming back. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and click on the link. Anyway, that's all I got. This is Jake, the Mad Italian, and thank you for watching.